Let's read this first story we got from Timcast.com. Enforcement of New York City's vaccine mandate for children 5 to 11 to eat in public already appearing on social media. The expanded key to the city guidelines have now impacted families in the city and tourists coming to experience the Big Apple. The most notorious video is this one here, where you can see, let me turn the volume down a little. You can see there's a little boy. He's surrounded by NYPD officers who are demanding his vaccine papers. And they say, if you don't have the papers, you can't eat here. Now, it's hard to break down exactly what's happening because it's an Applebee's and they didn't want to give us all the details. But we do have this. Let me start from the beginning. The rule expanded Monday to require anyone over the age of 12 to show proof of a complete 2-dose vaccination. A video circulating on social media Tuesday morning appears to depict an NYPD strategic response group attempting to eject a family from an Applebee's in Queens Center. The family, which included young children, did not provide proof of vaccination. Anyone 5 and up must show a vaccine card in order to eat here. Jose Perez, manager of the Applebee's in the Queens Center, told Timcast, "We have been attacked by protesters and our staff is on edge and the police have been helpful." While Perez said he cannot comment on that incident seen in the video, he said that no kids have protested. He added, "I am tired of having to answer these questions. People have been calling nonstop and we have work to do here. It's very busy." Well, I wonder if it's just journalists calling, but good on the people who are calling and asking questions. Now, here's something I think is very important. We have a quote here. Christina Myers, a host at Margaritaville Resort in Times Square, said she turned away more than 20 would-be diners by midday. They can eat outside, but who is going to eat outside with 5 and 6-year-old kids in this weather? Foreigners don't understand why we had to turn them away. Even people from Union City in New Jersey were confused. That's the point that I think is most important here. When I saw that video of that little kid being, questioned by the police, I lived in Union City, just on the other side of the river. No mandates as far as I know right now. So people are coming across into Manhattan confused as to why they're being ejected from these businesses. This is not just foreigners. This mandate means that people in the greater New York metro are going to be impacted by this. And I got to tell you, I see a video of cops asking a child for their papers and none too pleased with it. I don't know.
Absolutely. They should be ashamed of themselves. Following orders is not an excuse. Legal does not mean it's moral. 10 cops, while the city is being plagued with crime and violence, are now going after a 5-year-old because he didn't get government permission to eat at Applebee's. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? This is a new level of deprived politicization of the police force, of the authorities that are abusing their powers in order to appease these benevolent little leaders that are issuing these decrees that are absolutely totally backwards and nonsensical. And the details here matter because at first when I saw that video, I was like, oh man, why are protesters bringing their kids to this and having them interact with police officers being traumatized in this way? But the fact that these people weren't protesters, the fact that they were just there trying to enjoy their meal, interrupted by police officers saying, "Give me your paperwork or else," is disgusting. And I'm sick and tired to see this happen to a place that I grew up in, destroyed by bureaucrats and plutocrats who don't give a damn about the people. Sorry, I just had to go on a rant because that makes me mad.
So I have, I guess, the contrarian take here, which is that I think that it's a positive thing that the police are enforcing this as opposed to businesses. I don't think this changes until people have a very clear line of accountability as to who is actually responsible for these mandates. And what I actually think the way that the de Blasio administration has done this is really, really clever because they have made the businesses, the bad guy businesses that have been closed, forcibly closed for a year. They're trying to make back an edge in their businesses, and they have been forcibly roped in to enforce this mandate. So when I see police enforcing this mandate, I think that's the only way this is going to change because people see those videos, the one we're talking about right now, and they say this is not acceptable. But when it's just a guy at the Applebee's turning you away, well, that's not great video. And by the way, when those businesses are protested, like BLM protested a restaurant that turned away some customers in the summer, those businesses are trying to stay like in business as well. They're unwilling sort of participants in a mandate that is coming from the government and therefore should be enforced by the government. And that is how like democratic change happens, is when people actually know who to hold accountable.
That's actually a good point. You know, when people see videos and it's like you're trespassing and it's like the manager, everyone's like, well, it's a private business. Seeing the police do it, well, now you've got the potentiality of the right and the left being like, we are all now mad at the police for doing this. However, I kind of think the left is going to invert their police position now, and they're going to support the cops for doing this. So it's not really going to have an impact. Ultimately, if the left and the right both were like, okay, we're now angry the police are doing this, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, there you go. Maybe now the police will back off and say we're not going to enforce this. But I don't see that happening. I do see the left just inverting their position because they're posting it on Twitter. So as far as I'm concerned, I just take the individualist approach. If the government performs, what was it, the Ash experiment and the Milgram experiment? Was that what it was called?
Milgram.
Milgram, and then the Ash experiment was people willing to deny reality if the majority told them to. So if you have people who are willing to just deny reality and then enforce edict because someone told them to, the problem is them. I'll give you guys a really simple experiment they did that's really fascinating. They put a person in a room and they said, we're doing a study here. We want you to fill out this application. The application actually was the study. They put him in a room, they had him fill out the form, and they blow smoke under the door. When it was just one person in the room, they see the smoke, they run to the door, they feel it, they start yelling, there's smoke, fire, fire. The next group they put 3 people in the room. And what did people do? They saw the smoke, looked at the other 2 people, and then just ignored the smoke. So if you've got people looking around and seeing no one taking action, it solidifies the problem. Individuals simply need to step up and say, we won't do it, and you'll see people follow suit.
I don't think the left's going to defend this because the images are stark here and they're very important. I mean, we're seeing a child being intimidated by dozens of police officers. This is not just one police officer enforcing this. The NYPD is bringing out dozens of police officers, men with guns, that are going up to 5-year-olds and saying, hey, give me your paperwork or you're in trouble. That's disgusting. And this isn't just happening in New York City. This started in Italy. It's going on in Germany. It happened in France. There's a picture going around that is depicting French police officers interrupting the Matrix movie inside of a theater, going around asking people for their vaccine mandates, for their vaccine passports, for their government permission, domestic passport slip paper to be in a movie theater to watch a movie. I mean, imagine sitting at a movie theater, trying to enjoy a meal, and a police officer's giving me your paperwork, coming over your shoulder, breathing over you with weapons, violent men being like, give me what I want, give me compliance or else.
They're interrupting the movie, man.
But
Exactly.
that's
crazy,
the nature of political power, and I think it's important that the nature of that political power is clear and open and on a video that people can see. I think, frankly, not just with regard to this, but with regard to many, many issues, the major problem in our institutions and in our political culture today is a lack of small d democratic accountability. And I think there's a reason they enlisted businesses to do that. It scrambles the lines of accountability. Nobody, to your point about people, being willing not to comply, a lot more people are going to be pissed off and willing not to comply when they see 5-year-olds being arrested than when somebody is screaming at the 22-year-old hostess at Applebee's.
By no means. Yeah. I totally disagree with both of you because with the blue-pilled normies see video like that, they don't see it the way that we see it. They're going to look at that video and they're saying that poor child has an irresponsible parent that did not get 3 shots like I was conned into getting. And now that parent should be held accountable for not taking care of their child, being a responsible parent, and this is just fine.
They wouldn't say conned.
No, they wouldn't say that.
Yeah, they'd be like, my kid did the right thing.
Exactly.
What a terrible parent.
Exactly.
I don't think there's a lot of people out there like that. I think there's a perception that there is a lot of those people out there, but I think that's carefully curated and manipulated. I think a lot of people are saying, hey, the first one didn't work, the second one didn't work, now the third one's going to magically work. Why, how, where? Where's the data? Where's the science? What's going on here? A lot of people have some very serious questions that the medical professionals are not answering in this country, and they can't answer those questions, and that's leading to a lot of people being like, hey, why are we giving up our human rights, our rights to even sit alone at a restaurant, our rights to be alone and watch a movie in peace to these bureaucrats that aren't keeping us safe in exchange for this bargain that we're making with them? Because that's the bargain. They promised, we're going to give you safety, we're going to give you security, just give us your human rights. Just give us your dignity.
Risky freedom over totalitarian security any day. But what's the end result of this then? What, abolish the police? Everybody in New York gets mad at cops and says defund and abolish?
No. I think this is the end result of this is when people start to actually feel the pain of the policies, they have an opportunity. This is still a democratic country. They have an opportunity to change those policies. And I agree with you. I think even in New York City, that there are a lot of people who are, let's say, not like the folks around this table, but are still, they see that video and they see like, this is going too far. This is a problem. I think there are still a lot of people who just don't pay attention to how and in what like sort of mechanism this stuff is being enforced. And again, when they're asked by the 22-year-old waitress at Applebee's, they don't get mad. But when they see a 5-year-old child arrested by the police or harassed by the police, they do. And they start to actually think about whether or not that law makes sense. I mean, this is the Lincolnian thesis, right? The best way to get rid of a bad law is to enforce it strictly. That's a paraphrase. He didn't actually say that, but the gist of the speech he gave was exactly that. And he was referencing fugitive slave laws, right, which he was radically against. And he said, actually, if these laws are on the books, we should enforce them because that is how people will realize that this is a bad idea. If we selectively enforce it or we muddy the lines of accountability, we have no way of actually changing people's minds and getting rid of stuff like this. So I'm glad to see the police enforce this instead of the waitress at Applebee's.
It reminds me of that scene from V for Vendetta when the inspector is like, eventually someone will do something stupid, and it shows the little girl skipping and she's wearing the Guy Fawkes mask, and so the cop shoots her, and then all the locals just walk up with like pipes and crowbars. When people start seeing 5-year-old children being surrounded by cops and questioned, having their papers demanded, I agree with what you were saying. You know, it's gonna set off a lot of people, probably a lot of moms, I'd imagine. And that's a huge powerhouse. This is what Steve Bannon was telling us.
Yes, he's correct.
Women control the political landscape. What did he say? The French Revolution didn't happen until the women came out of their houses and marched, and then it was like, uh-oh. So when I think you see these kids.
There was a march like that before the Bolshevik Revolution too.
Wow. See, there you go.
That's
it's
what International Women's Day is a celebration of. That's
Yeah.
why it was originally celebrated by communist countries. It's the women's working march.
Yeah, you see, I think little kids being surrounded by cops, you're going to get a lot of women who are going to be upset about that.
Not only that, but people are being sent off to camps in Australia. There's police officers walking up to individuals being like, we need to check your cup. We need to make sure that there's coffee in there, because if there's not, you're in trouble. What kind of world did you want to be living in where violent thugs with guns come up to you and demand for you to show them your coffee because you're walking down the street? Are you kidding me? That's not a world I want to live in. That's an absurd world, a world that, of course, is carefully put into place by top-down central controllers, and this is what they want, this is what they called for, and they're only going to get it if people consent and acquiesce to it. And I think a lot of people had enough. That's my perspective. That's how I think it's going.
I think it's important that we make sure that there are still venues for people to express that they've had enough, because a lot of not only the COVID sort of regulations, but a lot of our policy is decided in this country by unelected bureaucrats, and they don't have any reason to listen to ticked off parents, right? And so I think, I don't know, I tend to think of a lot of political problems in this way. I really think that what we need at this moment, and I'm not always, I'm a conservative, I'm not always sort of enthusiastic about small d democracy. I don't think it's always the best, sort of answer. There is a danger of the tyranny of the majority. But I think in our particular moment, we're not in danger of the tyranny of the majority. We're in danger of the tyranny of the unelected minority, essentially.
We were talking about this a couple of years ago, Tim. A specific study that was done showing how democracy was a joke and how the major policies that people wanted were never passed. The policies of special interest groups were passed, showing how essentially the works of Congress is being done by the people who have the power, who have the money, the special interest, essentially all of them. I forgot the name of that specific study.
There was a chart. It showed that that public opinion had a 0% impact on public policy, and that the opinions of wealthy elites had a massive impact on public policy.
But that is what you get when you slow off political decision making into bureaucracies.
Yeah.
Right. Washington, D.C., and to a lesser extent the states, but primarily in Washington, D.C., the vast majority of political decisions are not made by Congress, right? This is what was so absurd about AOC, for example, being mad that West Virginia has a powerful senator. The reality is the views of Brooklyn, right, are reflected much more in an elite class of, like, a managerial class of bureaucrats. And those people are not responsible to the majority. Most of our political decisions are made either by bureaucrats or by courts, which are properly placed beyond democratic control, but they've gone beyond what they're supposed to be ruling on. Between those two things, there's a smaller and smaller space for the people to express any kind of opinion or displeasure with the direction of policy.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. all of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about. So you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.